somewhat more liberal, and then Cochise County and the counties to the north of Cochise perceived as much more conservative. Do you agree with that appraisal, or is it not quite that way?
Well, we also have Pinal, Graham, and Greenlee. So add that to the mix. I mean, this is a very, very diverse district in a lot of ways. Obviously, the demographic is diverse, but also the political leaning. And people selecting the representatives that they want for them. If you look at the mayors, for example, I do an annual mayors meeting where I host all the mayors for lunch, and you have a great mix of mayors in that in our district. From, I think it's 22 mayors that we have, Democrat or Republicans. So it's a very fascinating district in that sense. And that's why it's so interesting, and you got to get around the whole thing to fully understand it.
And you certainly know the history that the districts had different numbers over time, but it's got a history of electing Democrats or Republicans.
Yeah. So the history of the district, if you look back, it's goes from Republican, Democrat. It kind of flips every time the member retires. The other side takes over, and I think as this district selects the individual that they want them representing them based on the individual, not so much the political party, the political leaning. It's, are you showing up? Are you listening? Are you reflecting the culture and who the district really is? And I think I am that reflection, given that I grew up here, middle school, high school, community college, the University of Arizona, my first job on Broadway in Swan on that Wendy's. So that helps me understand the district because I grew up in it.
Now, is it possible to put in kind of a rank order? What are the hot topics for that district? And I think we're going to have to wait.
Man, you're good. That was good. That was a good rap right there.
Yeah.
We're good.
All right. So, I mean, is it possible to put in a rank order? What are the priorities for that district?
Sure. I would say that on top of the list, you're going to see the border and the economy. Those are the top two issues that I hear about anywhere I go. And this is from Duncan all the way to Casa Grande, because that's kind of like how the district extends. It's actually from half of Casa Grande all the way to New Mexico, most of Cochise County, Graham, Greenlee, and of course a good chunk of Pima County. So you're looking at the border, and that includes immigration overall, that includes work permits, that includes trade and commerce across the border, and that of course includes security. It's that and also the economy, the cost of living, families trying to raise their families here in spite of things being so expensive still, and our veterans. Those are the things that I would rank the highest.
How are you going to make any progress on the border? I mean, there was the bill that was widely touted as the most progress in years, never got to a vote. Were you pleased that it never got to a vote, or do you think it should have?
Well, I would challenge the notion that it was that there was a lot of positive on that bill. There were some positive aspects on it that I liked and I actually spoke about, but the bill couldn't get out of a Democrat-controlled Senate. As much as there was bipartisan support, there was way more bipartisan opposition to the bill because it didn't get to where it needed to get to. Now, what I wish would have happened, because this was a Senate bill, is that the Senate would have passed a version of that bill into the House so that we could work on it. I voiced my concerns with the current format of the bill when it was first introduced, but like any legislation, let's say, goes through the process, it gets amended, it gets fixed, it makes it out of one chamber, it goes to the other, and we start all over. But unfortunately, as a House member, I never got a chance to actually officially participate in the bill because it never made it out of the Senate.
I think I've heard both you and neighboring Democrat Ronald Grijalva say, if you try to get a total umbrella border bill, it's always going to die because there'll always be a deal breaker for somebody.
Well, that's an interesting point. Raul Grijalva came out against that bill, and I did as well for different reasons. But that's a reality of when you try to, hug too much in one bill and include too much in one bill. I wish we could fix it all with one clean swoop. And listen, if there's an opportunity to do that, I'm always going to be at the table on whatever we have in front of us to work on. However, as we're moving in that direction, hopefully at one point, I can't just stand still hoping for this big bill to solve everything. I have to be taking different bites at this apple. What are we doing to tackle the high-speed chases, for example, that we're seeing? That's a bill that I introduced that passed with 56 Democrats voting in favor of my bill in the House. Unfortunately, the Senate never picked it up. That was a great bipartisan effort on one specific aspect of border security. What are we going to do about work visas, for example? That can be carved out into another effort so that we can meet the demands, the workforce demands that we have in this country. So there are different aspects that we can be tackling, and I'm interested in any kind of work in that area.
So do you think those have a chance in the current political climate, some of those that you just mentioned?
I think they have a better chance. If you look at my bill that passed the House with every Republican and 56 Democrats, you would think that the Senate was going to pick it up, given that it had over 50 Democrats in the House voting for it. Unfortunately, they didn't do that. So the political environment is so divided that any piece of legislation making it through on just one chamber is a challenge. Both and signed by the president is even more challenging, but it doesn't mean that we don't stop working on it and finding the common ground that we can with the other side and their own side to be able to advance something in this area. We must do that. It's very personal to me, Greg, because I'm an immigrant. See, I came to this country when I was 11. Go through the whole immigration process, 13 years to become a U.S. citizen. So I become a citizen in 2006. 16 years later, I get elected to the United States Congress. Show me any other country in the world that would give you that opportunity. You can't find it. So I believe in the American dream. I believe in the opportunities this country offers. And I can also tell you firsthand how broken the system is to actually go through it. So I'm interested in fixing the immigration process as well as tackling the security piece.
You see any hope of getting that process fixed to the point where someone can more easily say, yes, I went through all the steps legally, I'm here legally?
Well, if I didn't see hope, I wouldn't be good at my job. I am hopeful. I'm a glass half full kind of guy, and we have to look at what we have in front of us and the need. When I look at the business community and I look at people that have gone through the process, they all can attest to how expensive and bureaucratic and outdated the system is. So I am optimistic that we can fix aspects of it so that we can continue to speed up the legal process of being either acquiring a work permit or a green card, or in some cases all the way up to being a United States citizen. So we have to keep working on that, but we can't neglect the fact that we have a security problem as well, and we have a fentanyl crisis going through our ports of entry and also through different parts of the border. So we have to be able to do both. Be very strong and stern and firm on the enforcement of the security part while enhancing and improving the way that people can come here legally.
Did they finally get unstuck that issue where they had improved detection equipment, but they didn't have the money to get it installed and staffed?
So the staffing is a big part of it. I introduced a bipartisan bill with Greg Stanton that would create a position within CBP to be able to use the screening services that we have. I don't know when was the last time you were through the border, but you see lanes that are there, but they're closed. Staffing is a problem. Having the proper technology also helps at the ports of entry. That's why when I was with the Arizona-Mexico Commission, I led that for the entire time that the Ducey was in as governor. So the 80 years I was involved with the Arizona-Mexico Commission, the majority of them leading the organization, and focuses around attracting tourism, trade, commerce, and more resources to the ports of entry so we can enhance that trade and commerce across the border. For Arizona, Mexico is our #1 trading partner. Times 4, $17 billion of two-way trade. We want more of that. And by adding the screeners and adding, this enhances the security, detection of fentanyl, but also speeds up trade and commerce.
Now, moving on to the economy, what as an individual member of Congress can you do to try to improve economic issues for your average person?
Yeah, very important question, right? A lot of that is going to come down to local level and state level of taxes and so forth. However, at the federal level, there is a number of things that we can do. First of all, as an appropriator, I can tackle the wasteful spending the government has. As soon as I got to Washington, I realized very quickly that the spending problem was more of a Washington addiction. The national debt grew under both Republicans and Democrats. And we've seen that, both sides being responsible for where we are financially over decades of wasteful spending by Washington politicians. So if we take a really hard look at what are the priorities, what we should be spending money on, so we reel back the wasteful spending that we're seeing. We do efforts to increase and grow the economy, like keeping regulations low, lower taxes, allowing businesses to go and invest, hire people, pay their people more. All these things lift the economy, and of course, inflation drops and prices are more affordable. What we're seeing now is not just trouble buying things that could be luxury, like a new car or a vacation. We're looking at people having trouble paying for basic things, milk, eggs, bread. These are the things that when it gets much more real, rent even, it's not just being able to afford a new home, it's actually, can you pay rent? Those are the things that we need to tackle, and that's what we can do at the federal level.
Does some of that government spending end up helping people? Because here's a project, there's a job associated with that project, that kind of thing.
Well, that's why I differentiate and say wasteful government spending is one thing. Obviously, our tax dollars being invested back in the community is a key aspect of what the government is responsible to do. That's why I'm so proud of the work that I've done to bring $60 million back into the community to pay for things like you saw this morning. About $4.5 million going to help our police officers with new vehicles and the mobile command unit. And that's not the only police department, Sahuarita as well, Marana as well, that we've invested in. Money for fire stations in the town of Pima or the town of Oracle, and water projects, hospital in Wilcox. These are all federal dollars that I've secured to come back to the district. Roads from Casa Grande all the way to Sahuarita. These are projects that actually help our community, and proper use of federal dollars to come back and be reinvested into our community. And when I say federal dollars, it's important to note that these are dollars that you, me, and everybody else in this community have paid into the federal government. So I am happy to be bringing them back to our community.
Now, this this interview is actually going to air a couple of weeks from now, right about the time the early ballots go out.
Okay.
So I want to be cautious about dating. But we've seen a lot of incidents recently, two involving Donald Trump, school shootings, et cetera, that raise the question of, should guns be quite so easy for people to get? What do you say?
Well, I'm always going to stand by the Constitution. I'm going to protect people's Second Amendment rights and their right to bear arms, as the Constitution says it.
But there are other things, like even the First Amendment is not totally unrestricted. There are certain types of speech that are restricted, and there are consequences for dangerous or bad statements, consequences after the fact. Is there a way to balance Second Amendment concerns with what we've seen as the result of a lot of guns being in circulation?
Well, we don't want to see illegal guns in circulation anywhere. We also don't want to infringe upon the rights of law-abiding citizens in the Second Amendment. As a dad myself, Laura and I have talked about this. The kind of things that keep you up at night, obviously, are the tragic incidents that we've seen in schools that you mentioned. We don't want to see any of that in our community. So we have to look at the big picture on this, and it's how do we protect the rights of law-abiding citizens? How do we, people that are not legally able to own the weapon, to prevent that, and also how do we tackle the mental health issues that drive a lot of these incidents? So it's not a one-pronged approach on this. We have to be tackling it in a responsible manner.
I mean, in a lot of cases, these guns were legally obtained but badly used.
And those are bad people that did those bad things, and they obviously were wrong in doing that, and we don't want to see any of that happen.
Now, what's the right course on abortion? There's a certain number of issues that just are automatically asked these days. What do you think is the right course for the federal government on abortion, and what's your role in all of that?
Well, abortion now is a state issue. That's what the court determined on that. So as a U.S. congressman, I oppose a federal ban on abortion. I've been clear on that. I support the exceptions, of course, for rape, for incest, for the life of the mother, obviously. I support IVF. So these are the issues that I want to be clear on, because I'll never do anything to jeopardize a woman's health. And now it's going to be decided at the state level all across the country. So voters will have a direct say on that.
So better to leave it at the state level, as the recent court decision pretty much set up?
Well, that's what the court decided, and that's where we are, so we're going to abide by that.
Okay. Now, I want to give you a chance, if you choose to answer some of the things that have been mentioned by your opponent.
Sure.
A lot of the ads we see, she keeps mentioning this Patriot Academy, your time in there. what influence, what do you see as the purpose and goals of that Patriot Academy, and what influence does it have on you?
Well, the first thing you got to realize is that this is a political attack. It's a political maneuver by my opponent. And when you can't actually talk about the issues, you can't talk about policy, you're going to be grasping at straws. You're going to be looking for different things to attack, given that she can't really have a policy discussion on this. But let's talk about Patriot Academy for a second here. This is an organization that focuses on teaching young kids the Constitution, the process of government, how a bill becomes a law. So my involvement in it was to help recruit mainly first-generation students that didn't have the opportunity to grow up understanding how our form of government works, to attend the mock legislative session. Basically, the kids play the role of a state representative, and they go through the process of putting bills through the House. And in the meantime, they get taught about the Constitution, how the whole process works, how to be engaged civically. So that's what the program does. My involvement was, again, trying to get more first-generation students to understand the way our Constitution works, the proper role of government, for example. When is government too big? When should it be involved? When should it not? The private sector, all those things. So that's what it is. Now, what you're seeing is, of course, grabbing that and running with it. Why can't she be talking about her record on the border? Because she has a terrible record on the border. She voted against the border strike force. She didn't even acknowledge there was an immigration crisis just a little while ago. Asked if there was an immigration crisis, she said no. You talk about the attacks or the ads or what we're putting out there, all that I put on the record for her, those are her own words, Greg. That she's been saying it herself. So it's not me giving an opinion about what she does, it's her own words trying to explain what she's done and her own record as well, given that she's been voting against border security this entire time. So she has no record to stand on except a really terrible one, and that's why she ends up trying to distract from that.
Now, I think we're hitting the limits of what we can reasonably do here, but I always give folks an opportunity, as you know, to just say, well, is there anything you want to add here? Is there anything you want to add to what we discussed here?
Well, first let me say that it's been my honor and the privilege to be a representative for the people here in this district, of listening and producing results. I have a vision for the future. I have a vision that we need to be doing here in terms of tackling the border issue, tackling this economy to make it work for everyone, supporting our veterans. That's what we need to keep doing. That's what I want to do here in our second term coming up. And I know that we're going to be able to do that because of the record that I stand on, of bringing resources back to the district, of being ranked the most bipartisan member in Congress from Arizona, of playing a role in the largest water deal in U.S. history that we led through legislation, also on the expansion of the I-10. These are all things, results that I can point to, and tangible results of what we've done. That's where I'm building my vision on for next year, of keep on supporting our veterans, keep on growing the economy, making it work for everyone, and also securing our border and making immigration a system that actually works for people that want to come here.